So today with us on Steward Talk, we're honored to have a special guest. Here on Steward Talk, we walk in our purpose on purpose, and today's guest has definitely been doing that. She's so selfless. She cares about her students. She cares about people around them. She cares about their soul. She cares about them in school excelling beyond school, beyond sports, but just in life and making sure that they get the best out of their self and they be who God has created them to be. Today we have with us Miss Mona McGhee. How you doing today?
I am great, thanks.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about your role at Central and how did you get started at that position or where did you start before Central?
Well, I've been blessed. Let's start with that. My very first position was in Assumption, Ohio. And believe it or not, that was a critical position because a couple of the individuals that I met there, I got to work with at Central. So John Mossing was a fifth grader 45 years ago. And then I got to work with all of his siblings, all of his sons and daughters. They were triplets and a son. And so I got to work with his brothers, his whatever. It was just a small world. And then I went to Cardinal Stretch, and this is history now. So you're going to get a little history lesson. I was there when they had 800 students plus a 50-person waiting list. You had to duck and dodge to get to your classroom. And we had a tremendous wrestling program. And we were like noted all over the state of Ohio. Like nobody wanted to wrestle Cardinal Stretch back in the days. And I always tell people the kids taught me as much as I taught them. So I have students 40 some years ago, whether it be basketball, wrestling, girls basketball, women's basketball, that will still reach out to me. And, on Mother's Day or just send a text here or there. So, the seeds, in the Bible where it says the seed you plant today may not grow today. But just be patient and know I'm God. Well, there you go. So I have just been so blessed. I left Central Catholic after 20 years and just got a card from a student that I had at Cardinal Stretch, her husband as well, and had all of her students at Central Catholic. So, there's like a circle here. After I went to there, I went to Toledo Public and did inner city phys ed for a couple years and got a master's degree. And from there, I went to Fremont. And that's where I want you to know I probably learned how to bring God into my life. I was blessed to work with Georgia Woodson. And everybody will want to know about Charles because obviously Charles was and is one of the most successful athletes, human beings, period, right? Yeah. But I always tell people, don't ask me about Charles unless you're going to ask me about Terry and Shannon, because those were his brother and sister. And both of them were class presidents. Both of them went on. One went to Arkansas on a track scholarship. The other went to Miami on a football scholarship. And then came Charles. And those kids were raised in the projects, not with a lot of material things, right? But with a mother that sat down with family meetings. Okay, like we're going to sit down. I work 14 hours a day. I work a lot so that we can have food on the table and a roof over our head. And she always said to the kids, sit down and tell me everything, good and bad. What am I doing right? What am I not doing right? And I'll hear the same thing from you. And you're going to hear some things you're doing right. And you're going to hear some things you need to work on. And like, she is truly the one that taught me, you got to go to God, you got to go to God. And by the way, you got to go to God. Yeah. So I can honestly say, I think my whole spiritual life changed when I got to meet her and walk with her with 3 of her students. And that's not all I worked with in Fremont. I got to work with I still talk about Dawn Zerman. She was all-state in tennis, all-state in basketball, and all-state in softball. That's a 3-time all-state player. I don't know many males that do that, let alone females that do that. So, God's been good. This is what I'm telling you. And so I left Fremont and I went to St. John's from Fremont, I went to Vanguard for 2 years. Wonderful experience. I learned all about vocational education. Again, imagine when I'm teaching a horticulture class and I don't even know what horticulture is because I'm a little unprepared. And the students go, come down to the greenhouse. And I figured it all out. So I learned that and many other things from those students. And then I came back to Toledo and went to St. John's for 7 years and got to work with the Toledo 2020 program, which was just a blessing. And funny that you should ask, because yesterday I got a call from Sean Clark, who met my daughter in California,
Wow.
and just could not stop saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I said, Sean, the gratitude goes to God because he brought us together. So then I went to Bowser, and again, Jaslyn Davis, all-state basketball player, and then I had very strong ties to Brian Roberts,
Yeah.
all-state basketball player. At one point, I had the girl and the boy in my office at the same time. So, when I tell you that God's blessed me, I cannot say that I've done anything really. I've just been very grateful. And then I, went to Central Catholic, and just so you know how God works, I said, it's all going to be about college because I'm the college counselor. I'm starting a brand new program, and I'm going to back away from athletics and put all my time and effort into college counseling because it's my passion.
Yeah.
And I met Greg Dempsey, and the rest was history, because you're talking about a man that has won 5 state championships. Yes, he has. But you're also talking about a man that works 24/7, 7 days a week. There was probably not a day. My days at Central went from 7 until 8:30 at night in the fall, but I'd always get a phone call on my way home. Anything I need to know. How are the kids doing? What do I need to know? So when people say to me, what makes a successful program, you got to have a coach that is more invested in their children than just on Friday nights in front of the lights, right?
Yeah.
So, like I said, now I'm headed to Columbus, and I'll start a new career there. And by the grace of God, and it's all Him. You're going to hear God 100 times. I can't wait to see how I can serve.
Yeah. When did you know, was it when you had that relationship at Fremont Rocks, or when did you know that serving was inside of you and that you had a feeling when you started to serve and help the kids? Like, when did you know that was your passion, or helping others, was what you was gonna do? Has that always been inside you?
Well, I'm going to go back to my high school, right? My dad passed away when I was 8 years old. So at that point, I no longer was a child. And I always tell people, don't feel sorry for me. No, it's nothing I wish on anybody, but that opportunity gave me a chance to become a young adult much sooner than I should have been, right? I became a problem solver. I became a passionate person. I became an empathetic person because I had to help my mom. She didn't have anybody anymore. And I always tell this story because I think it's very important for people to understand. I went with her when my father passed. I went with her to the bank because you have to pay for the funeral. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. And he looked right in her eyes and he said, ma'am, I don't know what to tell you. You don't even have, and this is how long ago it was, you don't even have the $300 to bury your husband because everything's in his name. And she held it together, right? Until she got to the car. And then she broke down. And I was just like, Mom, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And this is why I say great things about the military. They came in because my father had served in the World War II and literally helped her with everything. So there was no issue. So you can understand that I grew up with Mom working 2 jobs because she was a musician and worked a full-time job, and no father. So it was my teachers at Wade High School and my counselors and my elementary teachers at Eastside Central that always took extra time with me, always. Now let's continue that. I go to the University of Toledo. I get very, very upset when people say, I'm only going to UT. I go, excuse me? Because I was so afraid of college, and I went on a full scholarship. I was so afraid of college because I was like, my sister was brilliant. I was a very strong leader. So I ran everything, did everything, but I wasn't exactly the best academically. So I'm like, I don't know if I can do college. I'm going to do my best, but I also don't like to be mediocre. So I ended up going to Contech, which would be equivalent to Owens.
Yeah.
For one, we used to be on quarters. I'm very old. 1 quarter, and I got a 4.0. And then they insisted that I go to the main campus. I go, nope, 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 because I loved it. So I stayed there 2 quarters, got another 4.0. And then by the 3rd quarter, they pushed me back to main campus, and I did great. But when I went to the University of Toledo, kudos to them, I got noticed day 1. I was called upstairs in an office and given all kinds of special treatment at the University of Toledo, and it never ended. I have 5 certifications and 2 master's degrees.
Wow.
So I had great people mentoring me,
Yeah.
teaching me. You don't become a teacher to just go through the motions. That's not acceptable because
Yeah.
there's people like me. I mean, you don't ask for your father to pass when you're 8 years old and for your mom to work 2 jobs. And that was Georgia Woodson's story. She was working all the time to make sure those kids had everything they needed. So you need school personnel to step in. And, you know, I remember when I was at St. John's, one of the nicest things that was ever said to me is they said, you know, Mona, when we drop our kids off, we can go to work and do our jobs because you're like a mother to them. You are like
Yeah.
on duty. And I felt like, well, that's what my teachers were like. That's what my counselors were like. That's what my professors were like. There's no other way to do education than 100%, particularly in 2024.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I first I got introduced to you. I think it was 2001 or 2001. My cousin Andrew Allen was a part of the 2020 program. So that's how I got familiar with you and how much you really did, impact the school. And I watched a video of you recently as I did some research, and you got this thing called miracles when people, I guess they was thinking that they can't go to college or their grades wouldn't get to where they wanted to be. And you be like, we're going to work a miracle. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's a motivation and allowing them to know I got faith in you, but you need to have faith in yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I'm telling you, I'm so blessed. But one of the people that Coach Dempsey and I and my daughter Melissa met on our journey was Coach Trussell. And Coach Trussell is the real deal. I mean, does it break my heart that he's still not in college coaching? Yes, because he, like Greg Dempsey, like Fred Beyer, like those people are so much more than a football coach. They are literally the whole big deal. Lloyd Carr at Michigan was who recruited Charles Woodson. And I still remember how much care, concern, love. I mean, obviously, who wouldn't love somebody that does what that child can do? But on the other hand, you never forget those type of coaches that give 200%. Well, when I go to see Coach Trussell or he comes to Toledo, he's come to Toledo so many times to help our students out because he loves
Yeah.
students. He loves kids. And one of the things he talked to us about was this book called Andy Andrews. And a person that I absolutely adore, well, family, is the Boyles, Mike and Teresa Boyle. And I went to Father Schmidt's dinner, and Jim Trussell was the speaker. And I loved I'm sitting there going, you go to school every time you hear Jim Trussell speak, period. End of the story. Get your notebook out and learn something. As Medea would say, learn something. So the bottom line is I got the book because Mr. Boyle sent me a copy. He said, you fell in love with that speech. I want you to know, here's a book. This is where he got it from. Well, I literally have taken that speech to so many kids because the first thing it starts with, the buck stops here. Like, at what point do you stop pointing fingers at everybody and
Yeah.
saying it was your fault? It was your fault. Someone didn't do this for me, didn't do that. I'm sorry. What did you do for yourself? At the
Yeah.
end of the day, if you have done everything that you can do, then we can have a conversation. But if you expect others to do it for you or to do more than you're capable of doing, probably not going to work very well. One of the things that I enjoyed in all the years that 20 years of working with Greg Dempsey is humility,
Yeah.
right? I can tell you in probably 2 or 3 minutes when I talk to a young person, how much God do you have in you? Because the more God you have in you, the greater your future. I mean, it's really that simple. You said, if you could tell a child anything, I would say figure it out. And I mean, God isn't like the same for every person. Like, I go to church 20 times a week, or I say 40 rosaries, or I read the Bible cover to cover. Those are great things. I'm never going to say they're not great. But here's what it is. Does a person to the right of you need something? Give it to them. If you
Yeah.
have it in you, give it to them. Does the person on the left need something? If you have it in you, give it to you. Like, just serve. So
Yeah.
to me, the greatest reward is seeing God in action. It's
Yeah.
always him. So you
Yeah.
can look at a kid and you can say, this kid is going to make it big because he's got so much God in him.
Yeah. Yeah, and then my coach at Walsh University used to coach at Akron, Ohio, and that's the coaching tree. So my coach at Walsh, he coached at Akron, and that's where Jim Tressel started. So he's off
See?
that coaching tree. So a lot of those things, and you saying my coach was saying as well, because they talk a lot too. And what you just said, it's amazing because I interviewed Cornelia Clay,
Oh, yeah.
Brooklyn Vaughn, Sherrod,
Oh,
and
Brooklyn,
just did
the best.
Nyla King and her brother Solomon, and they were talking about God. So let me ask you this question because God is needed. And I told them that's good that you're sharing the gospel and you're allowing people to see that even you as
Yeah.
a student athlete is knowing that God gave me this potential. I want to give him the glory because he's blessed me with
Mm-hmm.
all these different things and opportunity. Like Cornelia said, I know it's the grace of God that I'm able to play at a D1 college. And it touched me so much
Yep.
because we shouldn't be ashamed of the gospel. We should be able to say it. So my question to you will be, how will we be able to allow kids to know that it's okay and to allow them to walk in their purpose, allow them to be able to go after God and form a relationship without worrying about what everybody says? How can we do that?
Well, the unfortunate part of that question, and I wish I could be more positive, is kids need to hear it more. Like, it's
Yeah,
funny because Cornelia, you are exactly right. She is rooted deeply in the word and the belief. And you talk about Brooklyn Vaughn, I'm going to tell you, she may be the greatest athlete in the entire world, but she's a better person.
yeah,
Like, one of the things that I did at Central Catholic is I could see that kids had a real serious need for food. So I put together this thing called a food room, right? But I'm one person and I might have 20 kids in there. Like, how's it going to work? How's this all going to work? Well, Brooklyn comes in and she goes, I'll take care of the drinks. You just get the food, I'll take care of the drinks. So I became so reliant on that child every day. Another young man that I have like enjoyed nothing but 4 years with is Isaiah Brenneman. He's in that same
yeah.
group. If you ask him, it's by the grace of God, by the grace of God. In fact, the seniors had to come up with a quote. And one of them said to me, Miss McGhee, like, I have to come up with a quote. What do you think? And I said, if one of you don't use by the grace of God, I'm going to rip all my hair out. Because it is by the grace of God that they were crowned state champions. And the
Yeah,
other one you mentioned is Nyla King and
yeah,
her brother Solomon and Jacob. And the
yeah,
bottom line is they know every day in my area, every single day, no exceptions, there's God talk. And when I say God talk, it's not let's preach the Bible. And again, I'm not ever minimizing the Bible. I'm just saying get it to their level, like literally talk to them
yeah,
about how God's working and also how the devil works. There's two sides to this coin. And tell them every day, like so many of these kids would have fear, fear, fear. I fear, I fear. I said, not if you have faith.
right.
I said, Father,
What
keep
does faith
this.
mean? What does faith mean to you?
Exactly. Like faith means that when I'm in a situation, I'm going to God.
Yeah,
And I would tell the kids, we had a wonderful priest, Father Kidd. He's now in the perfect spot for him. They moved him to be the recruiter for priests in the Toledo area. And I
okay.
said, it's going to go up times a million because he's that effective. But I told him at the beginning of the football season, Father, we need you more than we need anybody because we have the talent. We've got the coaches, we've got the parents, we got to have God.
Yeah,
Period. End of the story.
yeah,
So it's always the number one thing I tell a student is, did you go to God? Like, I'll give you the best information I can. I'll give you anything. You need note cards, you need a notebook, you need ACT training, you need a pep talk. I got it all for you. Special
yeah.
little treats. But at the end of the day, go to God.
Yeah. And I do a devotion on Thursdays at Pebblebrook High School down here. I'm in Georgia now. And the coach tell them like they'll be doing practice. So then when I'm about to come in here, like, you guys, this is more important than that new play we just ran. This is the most important part of the day. So that's good you're able to see him. And speaking back to Cornelia, she mentioned this. She said, I have to make sure that I do talk about God or I do say and give my testimony because you never know, I might be the only Bible or the only time somebody hears about God. When she said that,
Mm-hmm.
I said, that's right. That's definitely right because it needs to be, heard and taught about. What was a memorable thing that you have just recently, and you can go back a little bit. What is a memorable moment that you had working in the schools and that you've seen transformation just in someone?
Well, you mentioned Andrew Allen.
Okay.
So it's hard because there was a whole group of them, Thomas Carr,
Yeah, Thomas Carr.
Steve Switzer. One of
Yeah.
the things that I will never forget about Steve Switzer ever, and I should honestly call him and tell him this, but when I went to Central Catholic, uh, we had really bad phone reception. So I was downstairs, I had to run out on the steps and call him back and say, I'm so sorry, but our phones don't pick up in the basement, you know. And he said, well, I just want to tell you, does Central know how much God you're going to bring in that building? And I said, I just thought, wow, what, you know, it doesn't get any better than that, right? But Andrew and Stephen, they were best friends. I mean, inseparable. And as much as I loved Andrew, and I did, I really loved his mom more. That's another part of the
Yep,
equation.
my auntie
These
Londa.
yeah, these people that are successful, they had a grandma, they had an uncle, they had a grandfather, they had a dad, they had somebody that was all in. That's another huge factor that was very godlike, right? So Yolanda was just, you know, just an angel because I'm really serious about meetings. Like if you're not towing the line, I'm not going to just let it go. I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm going to have a meeting. So Andrew had about 3 meetings and I get a call, I think it was from Steve, and they said, hey, Miss McGhee, can you call Andrew? I said, what's up? And they said, he's working too much. I looked at the phone, I go, what? And they said, Miss McGhee, he owns a finance business and a cleaning business. He only sleeps 3 hours a night. We're really worried about him. And I'm just saying, no, I'm not calling him. That it means the Lord he's
Yeah.
not alive in Andrew. And then I hear there's more to the story that he literally works for Google and is living in Farmington Hills. I said, shoot, I couldn't even buy a house in Farmington Hills if I wanted to. And I said, but you know, by the grace of God,
Yeah.
you look at a kid like Andrew, who was a darling kid, just a sweetheart. And
Yeah.
then you look at his mom, who would not give up on him, who just kept pushing him. And then you look at me, who's never going to be satisfied with mediocrity. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you look now and you go, by the grace of God, look what that child is doing with his life.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor? Tomorrow is his birthday. I want you to tell him happy birthday. I'm gonna send this to him.
Okay, I can't wait.
It
Happy
is.
birthday, Andrew Allen. Congratulations on getting God.
Thank you. Yeah, so wow, man. And it's like you know a lot of people, and like the name drops in the beginning had me, and I'm like, you remain humble, you remain just giving yourself. What are you gonna do once you retire? Are you still gonna like check on them? How are you gonna do about that? Because I know your heart going out to all these kids. Like, what is gonna be that? How's that gonna look?
You know what? It becomes more them. Like every once in a while, you know, I keep one letter on file. I had a young man at St. John's and things didn't work out well for the program. And I had to ask him to leave. And Jermaine Curry. And literally, I had his older brother, Avon, who was phenomenal, just a great kid. And I remember he sent me an email. Guess, Miss McGhee, you'll never believe where I am. UC Davis, check it out. It's so academically tough to get in here. And I was just so proud of him. But Jermaine, it just didn't work out. Well, he sent me a letter through via email. Just, it was unbelievable. Like, Miss McGhee, I hope you're still working in education. I don't know how you do it. I look back at what I was when I came to St. John's, not prepared for anything that you were ready to give me. And all the countless hours, all the motivational talks, all this, I let them just bounce off me. And now I've grown up and I realize I should have listened to every word. I should have lived by every step. And I just want to tell you, I'm so sorry and how much respect I have for people like you that stay in the field, even when there's people like us. So I keep that letter because you know, if I ever do get down, which by the grace of God with kids, you don't, but just in case, I keep that. The other thing is, one year, Greg Dempsey decided to have the kids write letters to people out of gratitude that have made a difference in their life. And he handed me a stack of 17 letters. I still can't read them today because I remember everything about that child, right? Like when you have a Michael Warren from their freshman year to their senior year, right? And
Yeah.
you see him when he comes back, biggest hug, wants to go to the food room, still Michael, right? Or when I think about James Hudson,
Yeah.
his mom was just the end all be all. If that child had a B, she was on the phone asking me, what's going on and when is it coming up? I mean, she just did not play.
Yeah.
So when you have people like that, I always talk about Jeremiah Braswell, who was another phenomenal kid to work with. And kudos to his parents. The minute that child got out of football study table, because we used to have a study table every day at 3 o'clock, 3 to 4, then you went to freshman football. And sure enough, he started messing up terribly after that. I think he had 4 Fs and 2 Ds on Power School.
Wow.
And his dad marches him in to my office and said, do you know my son? And we had like 60 some players that year. I was like, well, I know of him. And he was great as a freshman. I said, I know of him, but I don't really know him. He goes, well, you're going to know him now because he's coming to Stars every day. That was our after school tutoring program every day. And I'm thinking to myself, if you had parents like that, that didn't mess around with negotiating, like, you know what the rule was at home. And that's what Georgia Whitson did with all of her children. You know, the rule is I go to work, I make a living, I make sure that you have a safe place to come home to. Your job is to go to school and take care of your business. And if I get called into school because you're not taking care of your business, I'm not going to side necessarily with the teacher. I'm going to, or, you know, with the student, I'm going to hear what the teacher has to say, and I'm going to make some decisions.
Yeah. Last couple things. What would you say to upcoming students looking to go to Central but really don't know how it is curriculum wise, academic, just very green about Central? What would you be able to say to that student?
I would say to any student and parent, both, if you feel when you go to an interview or talk to somebody, whether it be an open house or you just go visit the school, that those people will put the child first, you'll be fine. And as far as curriculum goes, there's always going to be people, especially at Central, reaching out, like trying to make your life better. I will tell you this, that in all the schools that I've been at, it's the most important thing is how does the parent and child feel? Because if they don't feel comfortable in the environment, or they don't feel comfortable in asking questions and getting answers, you're going to be in trouble. So yeah, as far as how hard it is, anything's going to be hard if you don't have, like, that's why we did student success, where learn how to make note cards, learn how to write things down, learn how to organize, learn how to improve your grammar, improve your math skills. You know, you shouldn't ever want to walk out of any program that you're enrolled in saying I'm the same as when I walked in the front door.
Yeah. Yeah. And lastly, can you leave words of encouragement to the youth?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. If it's to be, it's up to me, right? Here's another one. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. Like, either you're going to be a leader, right? Or you're going to follow, or you're going to get out of the way and watch other people do it. The final thing is you're going to watch things happen. You're going to make things happen. Or after the end of 4 years, you're going to go, what happened?
Yeah.
So those are things in my last one. I promise this is the last one. Great things happen when no one cares who gets the credit.
Yeah.
If you got to have your name in the paper, it's all about you. I mean, I'm telling you, that's probably the cancer that kills most teams, even when they have the most talent.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for this opportunity. We spotlighting you. May God continue to do a work in you. May he bless you. May he even bless you even more for all the seeds that you have sowed in those kids' life. May he pay you back with whatever money came by. May he give you love. May he watch over you, protect you. May he give you favor. May he open up your eyes for you can see what he's saying and hear what he's saying as well. May your life be blessed. May he give you ridiculous favor, and may all that you have taught these kids continue to help them in their life, and may they hear your voice when they're about to do something or when they need to make a decision, what you thought. And we just appreciate you for that.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.